4 hours after the Senate Committee on Appropriations deliberated on the request of President Muhammadu Buhari for the approval of INEC budget for the 2019 general elections, the committee swiftly concluded works on the urgent appropriation and presented its report at plenary. The sum of 189 billion was presented for the conduct of the 2019 general elections, while 45.5 billion naira is INEC statutory transfers.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is the presentation and consideration of the report of the Committee on Appropriations on the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC 2019 election budget. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Danjuma Goje, Chairman of the committee, to first move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Goje.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand to move that the Senate do receive and consider the report of the Committee on Appropriations on the Independent National Electoral Commission 2019 election budget. I so move.
Senator Ledani.
My name is Joshua Ledani, representing Gombe South. I rise to second the motion ably moved by Senator Goji.
Those against say nay. Yes, have it. Senator Goji, please can you come and lay?
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Senate considered the request by the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, for the payment of funds in the 2018 Appropriation Act to enable agencies of government relevant to the smooth conduct of elections prepare for general elections. Legislative action and findings. The committee made and considered the request as contained in the letters of Mr. President and observed that 1. By Mr. President's letters of request for supplementary budget dated 11th July and the one dated 19 September 2018, the total request is the sum of 242,445,322,600 naira. 2. That the request covered the 2019 general election operations of the following agencies: ANEC, as per the table, the one for ANEC for security, National Security Advisor, Department of State Services, National Security and Civil Defense Corps, Nigeria Police, and Immigration. 3. The executive allocated the sum of 143,512,539,455 naira only for payment in the 2018 Appropriation Act for ANEC. 4. The Senate and House Joint Committees on ANEC considered and approved the sum of 143,312,256,955 naira 13 kobo only, based on Mr. President's letter of 11 July 2018. And 5, the request did not make any specific and categorical specification of where the payment will come from. Recommendations. The committee wishes to recommend 1, that the sum of 143,312,256,955 naira 13 kobo recommended by annual committee, and the additional sum of 45,695,015,438 naira, totaling 189,007,272,303 naira be approved as part of the payment of the 2018 budget. 2, source of fund, that the sum of 189,7,272,393 naira requested for the funding of the 2019 general elections should be varied from both recurrent and capital components of the Special Intervention Program captured in the service-wide vote of the 2018 Appropriation Act as shown below, and be added to the sum of 45.5 billion provided for ANEC in the statutory transfers. This will bring the total budget for ANEC in the 2018 Appropriation Act to 204,507,272,393 naira. The breakdown of the allocation is shown, and therefore, the revised strategic transfer in the Appropriation Act will now be 243,507,272,393 naira. It is pertinent to mention that the recommendation on this interim report cover provisions for the Independent National Electoral Commission General Election Operations. And in making this recommendation, the committee took account of the report of the Joint Senate and House of Representatives Committees on ANEC, which met several times with ANEC during the recess to justify the need for their component of the requests. The final report, which will cover the affected security agencies, will be presented in the next legislative day. Prayer. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate do consider the report of the committee and approve recommendations. Conclusion. On behalf of the Appropriation Committee, we wish to thank the Senate President and the entire leadership of the Senate, and in fact the membership, for the support given to the committee. Thank you very much. I do present the report for your consideration and approval.
This issue was only referred to the Appropriation Committee yesterday, and for them to come back to us with this elaborate report requires some commendation. So I'd like to commend Dr. Goja and the committee.
Thank you for joining us. This is the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, reaching you live from the National Assembly. Here with me is the leader of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan. Sir, could you tell us the issues that may likely come up today?
Well, in today's order paper, we have consideration of bills, consideration of reports. We have some executive communications, communications from Mr. President on confirmation of some nominees of Mr. President. So, and second reading of some bills. So it's a full and very comprehensive order paper, and we intend to go the whole hog to complete whatever is on the order paper. First of all, we have these bills that would help in the consideration of all our nuclear arsenals and assets, to make sure that they are not in any way harmful to us, that we are able to use them safely and for civil purposes. But let me particularly point out those executive communications that are very important. The President has requested the confirmation of the chairperson of the NDIC, the Nigeria Deposit Insurance Corporation, and of course the chairperson also of the Nigeria Diaspora Commission in the person of Abike Dabri. So we are taking those as well, and I want to remind us that it has been our desire and resolution actually in the Senate since we resumed from our long recess, that we give Mr. President the nominees that he has requested, that we confirm as quickly as we can, because for some time this has shut or has disturbed the administration of APC in Nigeria. So we always like to, these days, work as quickly and as fast as possible to ensure that we pass the nominations by confirming them and sending them back to Mr. President. So this is, in a nutshell, the menu for today, so to speak. And I believe that the senators, having had very productive 2 weeks of oversight across the country, will now pay attention in the plenary to this kind of issues that will also make our country great.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
We are now taking you to the chamber where plenary is in session with the President of the Senate, Abubakar Bukola Saraki, presiding. Thank you very much, sir.
A vehicle of it, there's something that needs to be done. But before we conclude, as I said, these are observations. I have our committee should look into it and give us recommendations of how best forward for us to be able to address this before next year. But this is a matter that is of great importance, and we must do something to get called in security agencies to order so that we can have a credible and free and fair elections. Leader of Senate, yes, Senator Albert.
Thank you, Mr. President. My most distinguished and respected colleagues, Mr. President, I want to come under Order 42 and Order 52, Mr. President. And my point of order, Mr. President, is on the sealing off of the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly this morning by over 1,000 troops of the Nigerian police, Mr. President. So I want...
Distinguished colleagues, in line with our rules, I need the leave of the members to take this motion. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Go ahead, Senator Albert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, 3 days ago, or a couple of weeks back, Mr. President, I brought a point of order to this floor on the pending threats to the elections in Akwa Ibom. And Mr. President, 3 days ago, the Speaker of Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly, acting on the order of a court of competent jurisdiction, Mr. President, in a case where the Speaker was a defendant, declared the seats of 5 members of the House of Assembly vacant. Mr. President, let me place it on record that these 5 members of the House of Assembly went to court to compel the Speaker not to declare the seat vacant, that the Speaker declared the seat vacant. And Mr. President, the next thing we heard, I was told, and I have seen in both print and social media, is that 3 out of these 5 members of the House of Assembly went in, presided over by one of the members, and to say they have impeached the Speaker of the House of Assembly. Mr. President, just this morning, the Akwa Ibom State House of Assembly has been sealed off by over 1,500 policemen. And Mr. President, I believe that a threat to democracy in Akwa Ibom is a threat to democracy in Nigeria. And Mr. President, it is on good authority that we are here, I am here on behalf of the entire citizens of Akwa Ibom State, that this is an orchestrated attempt to cause violence and mayhem in Akwa Ibom State as we drive towards the general election. But we as a people, we have maintained and we have actually sustained the peace that actually enveloped the state in the last 3.5 years. Mr. President, my motion is that this Senate should please direct the Committee on Police and as well as the Committee on Legislative Compliance to direct the IG to redeploy policemen from an arm of a constituted arm of government that will allow them sit and deliberate and take positions and actions that will aid the good governance of Akwa Ibom State. Mr. President, I believe that this Senate has a responsibility. This Senate has a responsibility to carry out this resolution, Mr. President, as a summit.
Senator Aliu Sabi, I want to hear yes. You have been put your hand up, yes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Aliu Sabi Abdullahi, I represent Niger North. Mr. President, while appreciating the concern raised by my distinguished colleague, I want to draw our attention to our own rules, which says reference shall not be made to any matter on which a judicial decision is pending in such a way as might, in the opinion of the President of the Senate, prejudice the interests of parties.
Senator Albert, is there a judicial... Is there, Senator Ali Sabi, I think you gave a point of order. I think your point of order is overruled. Sheikh Usani.
Sheikh Usani of the People's Redemption Party. Mr. President, the motion raised by Senator Bassi is of serious concern. Laying siege and invading a state House of Assembly is a condemnable act that no parliamentarian worthy of his conscience and conviction should remain silent or endorse it. What happened in Akwa Ibom this morning is a breach on the principles of democracy and a serious violation of our constitution as a nation, as a people. This parliament must take a very strong stand. If this can happen to the House of Assembly in Akwa Ibom, it will someday happen here. And we all have a duty, irrespective of our political affiliation, to speak loud and clear and unambiguously that the invasion and the sealing of the House of Assembly of Akwa Ibom should be condemned. Positions should be taken that is clear and unambiguous. We should stand by the rules, the regulations, and the laws of the land. What happened in Akwa Ibom is an aberration, and nobody worthy of his senses should support it. Thank you very much.
Distinguished colleagues, I think honestly we should rise above partisan views. What is wrong is wrong. It depending on what time of in the politics, what is wrong is wrong. As parliamentarians, because I don't think that I will guide that we should not go partisan on this issue. If it is true that security agents have invaded a House of Assembly, a different arm of government, that is wrong wherever it's being done, and we must condemn that in totality. What we cannot conclude on is that it is an allegation that's come from a member. We should not conclude. Let it matter be looked into. But if it's so, it is wrong. We should not support it. But what should be looked into, there should be an investigation into it quickly to establish if it's so, and that committee should report back to us to tell us. And then once it's confirmed or not confirmed, then we can take an action. I think let us take it from that point of view, so that we see it, because we saw unfortunate incident that happened to us here in the National Assembly, and we cannot say because it does not concern us. So let us, what is your prayer, Senator Albert Akwen? Is that somebody should look into it, I guess? I think your prayer is said direct the Committee of Police to invite the IG in order to, and also look into it. All right. What happened?
Mr. President, my prayer is very simple, Mr. President. In as much as we are going to set up a committee to look into this, but the police should vacate. Over 1,000 contingents of policemen are still within the premises of House of Assembly. Members have not had access to the House of Assembly.
Let us investigate. So let me guide you. St. Albert, why don't we make your prayer, direct the committee to investigate this issue surrounding the right and make recommendations based on their findings. Yeah. Okay. I think if we guide, I can put the prayer and we make progress. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Chairman Police, can you urgently look into this matter and investigate the circumstances to find out what happened and come back to us within 48 hours on that? Thank you. Leader of the Senate. Yeah, point of order, Senator Kaura.
I represent Zamfara North Senatorial District. Mr. President, I want to come under with our 43 personal explanations. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, though there may be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor any debate arise upon the explanations.
Go ahead.
Any other time, I and some members of the Senate, my colleagues from Zamfara State, have been coming to this chamber with a lot of lamentations on kidnappings and killings in Zamfara State. Today, with a lot of unhappiness, I wish to also bring to the notice of this hallowed chamber and the entire world that Zamfara State is still under siege
Mr. President.
by kidnappers. Just to mention an example, Mr. President, as I'm speaking today, over 100 people across the state are being kidnapped in various captivities by kidnappers, Mr. President. And this, Mr. President, is in almost all the local government areas of Zamfara State. But this is particularly more prevalent in my senatorial district. As I'm speaking today, Mr. President, about 45 people are in captivity from Shinkafi local government, 12 in Zurmi local government, 13 in Birnin Magaji local government, and about 10 in Kauranamoda local government, making over 90 people in my senatorial district only in captivity, Mr. President. If one goes to Zurmi or Shinkafi local government today, including Kauranamoda and Birnin Magaji, a lot of villagers have decided to come into the rural and into the urban area to stay with their relatives simply because they can no longer stay in their respective domains. Mr. President, this is just in continuation of our problems in the state I wish to bring to the notice of this hallowed chamber. Secondly, Mr. President, my attention has been drawn to a write-up in today's Daily Trust, page 7, or page 6, Mr. President, where one Sani from Kware and Kure in Shinkafi local government granted an interview to the reporter of this paper in page 6, and he alleged that about 12 GATF members were killed by bandits. Even though toward the end of the narratives, the State Police Command had denied this number. I just want to put the record straight, Mr. President, that 12 JTF members were not killed, but 2 were actually killed. The remaining 6 people who were killed in Shinkapi local government are people of a village in Kwari Ward. These people have already moved to Shinkahi looking for another place to live. I so said, Mr. President, thank you.
Distinguished colleague, the distinguished senator came under personal explanation, so there can be no further debate on this. But he has raised was the information? Information? Just information. Okay, go ahead, give information.
Thank you, Mr. President, my well-respected colleagues. I'm Senator Kabiru Garba Marafa, and I represent Zamfara Central in the Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Mr. President, I just wanted to support my colleague, Senator Kaura, and in doing so, to further buttress the point he is making, that Zamfara State is under siege today, and we require of all and sundry to the problems bedeviling the state, especially as he rightly enumerated. Mr. President, I wanted to add the sad incident or the sad dimension that is introduced into these issues. That is the kidnappings of young girls and the pregnant women. Just 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks, 2 orphans, twins, were kidnapped from the same zone Senator Kaura represented, and we are just lucky to get their freedom through 3 days ago. And yesterday, also, a pregnant woman was kidnapped who was at point of labor, and she gave birth to the child in captivity. And as I'm talking to you today, Mr. President, the woman and other people are still in captivity. Mr. President, these things have become too rampant, and I think we need to do something very, very drastic to address this problem before Zamfara State is wiped out of the map of Nigeria. I want to congratulate him for bringing this issue up today, and I want this Senate to give it all the attention it requires, especially as affects the issues of kidnappings and killings. I so submit, Mr. President.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to see the 2 senators Zamfara on the same page on this issue. I think it's of great concern the level of kidnapping we're seeing in the state. And this is also why it is ultimate of importance. And I'm happy that it so happens that it is Senator Kaura that is heading the committee on police. We have a police reform bill that we believe some of the issues they might address, because I think these are institutional issues that need to be addressed to find medium and long-term solutions to some of these problems, because there are clearly the issues of manpower, the issue of training, the issue of equipment, the issue of funding, and there are a lot of issues that we must address holistically in order to be able to prevent, and we need to move very fast because it is deteriorating when you begin to now kidnapping children and pregnant women. So, Senator Kara, the burden also is on you to fast track that process and let us have that bill go for public hearing and come here for us to review it and see what we can do to see how do we support the police to be able to effectively fight crimes and prevent this kind of situation. So let us get that report on police reform. As soon as possible and fix a public hearing, and then you can present it and we can see how best forward to move forward on this, because this requires, in my view, a holistic approach to the institution as a whole. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President and my distinguished colleague, the first business of the day is presentation of a bill standing in the name of Senator Ahmadu Abubakar and the School of Mines and Geological Studies, Guyuk, Adamawa State Establishment, ETC Bill 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Are you breathing? Are there some things happening I'm not aware of?
Yes, sir. But you will be aware later.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, School of Mines and Geological Studies, Guyuk, Adamawa State, Establishment, etc. Bill 2018, SB 706, first reading.
School of Mines and Geological Studies, Guyuk, Adamawa State, Established, etc. Bill 2018, SB 706, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished and respected colleagues, the second business of the day is the presentation of a House bill standing in my name on the Federal University of Education on Sugbe Establishment, etc. Bill 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite the Clerk of the Senate to read the short title of the bill.
Clerk of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, Federal University of Education, Musugbe, Establishment, etc. Bill 2018, HB 1067, first reading.
Federal University of Education, Musugbe, Establishment, etc. Bill 2018, HB 1067, first reading taken. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the third business of the day is the presentation of the report of the Committee on Tertiary Institutions and Debt Fund in respect of A, Federal University of Education, Aguilari, Anambra State, Establishment, etc. Bill 2018, B, Federal Polytechnic, Daura, Establishment, etc. Bill 2018, C, National Institute of Construction Technology and Management, Establishment, etc. Bill 2018, and D, Federal Polytechnic, Ecom, Cross River State, Establishment, etc. Bill 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Jibrin Barau, Chairman of the Committee, to move the motion for the Senate to receive the report.
Senator Barau Jibrin.
Mr. President, apparently the chairman is on another legislative activity outside the chamber. I would therefore move that we stand down the consideration of this business of the day. I so move till another legislative day.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second that we stand down this item for another legislative day. I so second.
Those in favor of this motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President CNC for the confirmation of the nomination of Mrs. Ronke Shokefun for appointment as chairman of the board of Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC. Mr. President, distinguished senators, the purpose of this motion on the order paper is for the request of Mr. President CNC to be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. I therefore move that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President CNC for the confirmation of the nomination of Mrs. Ronke Shokefun for appointment as chairman of the board of Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC. I so move.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President for the confirmation of the nomination of Mrs. Ronke for appointment as chairman of the board of Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, NDIC. I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President the confirmation and nomination of Mrs. Ronke Shokefun for appointment as chairman of the board of NDIC. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. This is referred to Committee on Banking and Insurance. Report back in 2 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the second order of the day is a motion requesting the Senate to consider the request of Mr. President CNC for the confirmation of the nomination of Honorable Abike Dabri Erewa for appointment as the Executive Chairman / Chief Executive Officer of the Nigeria Diaspora Commission in accordance with Section 2, Subsection 1 of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission Establishment Act 2017. Mr. President, distinguished senators, the purpose of this motion on the order paper is for the request of Mr. President CNC to be referred to the relevant committee for further legislative action. I therefore move that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President CNC for the confirmation of the nomination of Honorable Abike Dabri Erewa for appointment as Executive Chairman / Chief Executive Officer of the Nigeria Diaspora Commission. I so move.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President on the confirmation of the nomination of Honorable Abike Dabri for appointment as Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of Nigerian Diaspora Commission in accordance with Section 2, Sub 1 of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission Establishment Act 2007 and for possible referral to the appropriate committee. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that the Senate do consider the request of Mr. President CNC on the confirmation of nomination of Honorable Abike Dabri Erewa for appointment as Chairman, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission in accordance with Section 2.1 of the Nigerian Diaspora Commission. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. This is referred to Committee on Diaspora and report back in 2 weeks. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, relying on Order 1 Sub B, I wish to rearrange the order paper to make the the 10th order of the day be taken as the first order of the day, and the arrangement follows accordingly. Consequently, the first order of the day is the presentation of the Prohibition Bill 2018. The Conference Committee of both houses have met and harmonized the differences in accordance with Senate Standing Order 87. Mr. President, we wish to invite Senator Kabir Marafa, who stands in for Senator Obin Naugba, the chairman, to move the motion for the Senate to receive and consider the conference report.
Senator Marafa.
Thank you, Mr. President, my well-respected colleague, Senator Marafa, Vice Chairman, Senate Committee on Sports. I rise to move the motion that the Senate do receive and consider the conference report on the bill for discrimination against persons with disabilities, Prohibition Bill 2018 SB 22. I so move, Mr. President.
Senator Lidani.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Joshua Lidani, representing Gombe South. I rise to second the motion that this Senate should consider the report on the Committee on Bill to ensure full integration of persons with disabilities into the society. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor that we consider this report, say aye. Those against, say nay. The ayes have it. Senator Marafa. You can now present the report.
Thank you, Mr. President, my well-respected colleagues. This is the report of the Conference Committee on the recommittal of a bill for an act to ensure full integration of persons with disabilities into the society and establish a national commission and vest it with the responsibilities for their education, health care, social, economic and civil rights 2018. Mr. President, following the passage of the Conference Committee report of the bill for an act to ensure full integration of persons with disabilities into the society and establish a national commission and vest it with these responsibilities by the Senate and the House of Representatives, the legal department, having carefully studied the bill and made the following observations. 1. Under Clause 38M, part of the functions of the commission is to enforce compliance with public building codes and impose necessary sanctions and make appropriate orders. This functions appears to duplicate the function of professional and regulatory bodies in the building industry. If the Commission must perform such function, then it is better to do it in collaboration with other relevant government agencies and professional bodies in the building industry: architecture, building engineering, estate surveying and valuation, quantity surveying and urban and regional planning. Clause 45(1) establishes a fund for the Commission, but does not specify the source for the fund and where it may be paid into. The above observations were found to be curable on addressing them and therefore require further legislative action. Therefore, the committee, in carrying out the assignment given it by the Senate, took the following actions. The Conference Committee met with the Directorate of Legal Services on Thursday, 18th October 2018 and addresses the fundamental issues raised in the bill. Below are the provisions of the bill and the proposed recommendations presented for legislative action. Mr. President, in the table, the left-hand side is what the bill provided for, and on the right hand is the conference committee recommendation for adoption of this Senate. Clause 38M, the committee recommends, in collaboration with other relevant government agencies and professional bodies in the building industry, enforce compliance of public building code and imposing necessary sanctions and make appropriate orders. For 45.1, the committee recommends as follows. Funds of the Commission. The Commission shall establish and maintain a fund into which shall be paid and credited A, all subventions and budgetary allocations from the federal government of Nigeria. B, such monies as may from time to time be granted to the Commission by anybody or institution within or outside Nigeria. 2, the Commission shall defray all expenditures incurred by it and shall include 1, the cost of administration, 2, the payment of salaries, fees, or other remuneration or allowances and pensions and gratuities payable to members and employees of the Commission. 3, anything done in connection with any of its functions. Clause 3 is retained as provided for in the bill. Mr. President, the observations made by the Directorate of Legal Services on clauses 38M and 45(1) to 3 were amended and recommended for adoption by this Senate. In conclusion, Mr. President, my well-respected colleagues, the committee wishes to express its gratitude to the leadership of the Senate and the House of Representatives for the opportunity given it to serve. I so present to you, Mr. President, and my well-respected colleagues. Thank you very much.
Distinguished colleagues, I think it's a very straightforward report. It's very unfortunate that this report this bill should have been passed a long time ago, but I think looking at the observations raised, they're very important that we have corrected this. And I think going forward, the other day we did make it mandatory now that committees should ensure that before they lay the reports, the directors of legal should review It's not after we have passed third reading that we now send it to legal. I think that would have saved this, but the points here are very germane, and I'm happy they have now included. So if there are no other, I'll put the question. Those in favor that the Senate do approve the conference committee report on the Discrimination Against Persons with Disabilities Provision Bill 2018 say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Thank you so much, Senator Marafa. This is a very, very important bill, and hope that we should get the assent of Mr. President so that we can provide a more favorable condition from some of our people with one form of disability or the other. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the fourth order of the day is second reading of the Nuclear Safety, Security and Safeguards Repeal and Enactment Bill 2018. Distinguished senators will recall that the bill was read the first time in this chamber on Wednesday, the 18th of July, 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator Donald Alashadura to move the motion for the bill to be read a second time. It's not here. What? Mr. President, Senator Donald Alashadura is unavoidably absent. I will therefore move that we stand down the consideration of this bill. I so move.
Mr. President, I rise to second that we stand down the consideration of this bill for another legislative day. Second.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, due to the prevailing circumstance, I move that we stand down the consideration of the 4th and up to the 13th orders of the day till another legislative day. I so move.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that we stand down the 4th to the 13th order in the order paper, items in the order paper for another legislative date. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, the 14th order of the day is the consideration of the report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on the Nigerian Law Reform Commission Act, Repeal and Enactment Bill 2018. Distinguished senators will recall that the report of the committee was laid on Wednesday, the 9th of May 2018. Mr. President, you may wish to invite Senator David Umaru to move the motion for the consideration of the report.
Senator David Umaru.
Thank you, Mr. President. I am David Umaru. I represent Niger East Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to move that the Senate do consider the report of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on Firearms Act Amendment Bill 2018 SB 489. I so move.
Senator Rozoko.
Oko, Cross River North.
No, sir, I'm just yeah.
I second the motion that the Senate do consider the reports of the Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on Firearms Act Amendment Bill 2018, SB 489. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion that we do consider the report on the Committee on Judicial Human Rights and Legal Matters on Firearms Act Amendment Bill 2018, SB 489. Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes, Senator David.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, this is the report of the Senate Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters on a bill for an act to amend the Firearms Act Cap F28, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to provide for increase of fine and provide for destruction of firearms illegally imported into the country and imposition of individuals without valid license and for other related matters connected therewith, SB 489. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the Firearms Act F28, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 Amendment Bill 2017 was sponsored by distinguished Senator Bola Hanje Dada, representing Ogun West Senatorial District. The bill was read for the first time on Wednesday, 14th June 2017. The Senate at plenary sitting on Wednesday, 27 September, deliberated on the principles of this bill, and thereafter it was read the second time and referred to our committee by the Senate order of referral dated 28th September 2017, and to report back with its recommendation. The objective of the bill, Mr. President, in a nutshell, is to amend the Firearms Act Cap F28 2004 to, among other things, achieve the following objectives. One, to increase the imposition of fine for offenses under the Act from the current regime, which is not stringent enough. And two, to provide for destruction of firearms illegally imported into the country or imposition of individuals without valid license in a bid to build public confidence and in the overall effort targeted at preventing illegal firearms from finding their way into the country or the society. And three, to generate revenue to the federal government of Nigeria through recycling and reusing waste materials such as the metal, wood, and plastic derived from the destroyed firearms. The methodology adopted is as contained in the report. The committee's activities is also highlighted in page 3. I will proceed to page 5 of the report, which deals with the legislative summary. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the highlights of the changes and inputs made on the provision of the bill are as follows. Clause 2 amends Section 27 of the Principal Act. In the proposed bill, subclause 1C, Roman figure 5 of the Principal Act was amended to increase the fine from 1,000 naira to 100,000 naira for contravention of the provisions of the Act. It is also our considered opinion that the proposed fine is not commensurate with the degree of the offense. Therefore, it was reviewed upward to the sum of 1 million naira or to both fine and imprisonment, which in the committee's view will serve stringent enough and act as deterrence to will-be perpetrators of the crime. Clauses 3 and 4 of the Principal Act. The new clauses 3 and 4 amend Section 28 and 35 of the Principal Act, which deals with the production of license and the prerogative of the President to prohibit possession or dealing in firearms, respectively. The committee, in the course of deliberation on this bill, observed that even though Sections 28 and 35 of the Principal Act were not part of the amendments, consequential amendments were introduced to reflect upward review of penalties in line with the amendments in Section 27 of the Act. This initiative, in our opinion, is apt because it relates directly to the subject matter, and it is also within the scope of the committee's duties to do so. Clause 3 was renumbered as Clause 5. This clause amends Section 38A of the Principal Act. It deals with power to seize and destroy confiscated and illegal firearms. The committee introduced new subclauses 3 and 4 to this clause to, among other things, provide for a central coordinating body
for the collection of the illicit and illegal firearms seized by any law enforcement agency in order to ensure accountability and transparency. And thereafter, firearms that are of military serviceable grade shall be put to use as is done. In other jurisdictions like the United States. Also, subclause 3, which seeks to renumber subclause 5, was redrafted to ensure that the destruction of the confiscated or seized firearms is supervised and executed by the Office of the National Security Advisor, as against the proposal contained in the bill, which is to the effect that it should be carried out by the organizations or law enforcement agencies that carried out the confiscation or seizure. Observation and findings. Having regard to the views canvassed at the committee hearing and contributions made by the distinguished senators during debates, vis-a-vis our subsequent clause-by-clause analysis of the provisions of the bill, we hereby make the following observations. 1, that stakeholders unanimously supported the passage of the bill with amendments, which are further reflected in the draft bill that is recommended to this distinguished Senate for approval. That in view of the proliferation of firearms across the country, coupled with the security challenges, this bill is a welcome development, and we commend this passage to the distinguished Senate. That further inputs were made on this bill, which provide for coordination of confiscated and seized firearms by a central coordinating body through the Office of the National Security Advisor. The provision will not only guarantee effective coordination, but will also ensure accountability and transparency. 4, that the fine in both the extant law and the proposed bill are not commensurate with the gravity of the offense. Hence, the upward review of the fine by the committee, which will serve as deterrent and as well strengthen the current efforts geared towards the control of illicit and illegal firearms influx into the country and in possession of individuals. 5, that the utilization of confiscated and seized firearms that are of military serviceable grades to be used by the military or paramilitary organizations is in line with the best practice obtainable in other jurisdictions of the world. 6, that the destruction of the unserviceable firearms must be carried out within the stipulated period specified in this bill, which this bill was referred, having favorably considered same, recommend as follows. That the Senate do consider and pass the Firearms Amendment Bill 2018 as amended. I so move. Finally, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, we wish to seize this opportunity to thank Mr. President of the Senate and our distinguished colleagues for the opportunity to be of service to our country, Nigeria. Thank you very much, and God bless. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any comments? If not, leader says.
Mr. President, very distinguished colleagues, I move that the Senate resolves the Committee of the Whole to consider the report. Close by close.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I second that the Senate do resolve into a Committee of the Whole to consider this bill. I so second.
Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Distinguished colleagues, there are 15 clauses here, so I'll take them one by one. Those in favor of clause 1 stands part to please say aye. Those against say nay. Ayes have it. Clause 2. Yeah. Senator Marfa.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think clause 2, clause 3, clause 4 all deals with the necessary deterrence for violating these sections. It is quite ridiculous that we have just 100,000. I think the committee has done well to raise it to 1 million naira, but I think 1 million naira, sir, especially looking at the problems we have now, like me coming from the Zamfara state, where firearms are owned by almost all and sundry, including automatic firearms. Mr. President, I think this penalty is grossly inadequate. And I want to propose, maybe we take it to the last ones where they recommended a minimum sentence of 10 years. We need to be serious about this issue. Unless we do so, we should forget it. 1 million naira, 10 million naira is grossly inadequate for these people. They can import and get their money easily. So I want to propose that we put stiffer penalty on these issues. And I want to propose a minimum sentence of 10 years and no option of fine. Just like in the other previous submissions in their district.
Yeah, Senator Marfa, let me take the comments of other people before I conclude, but I think, yeah, probably speaking the spirit and mind of a lot of Nigerians and what is going through. I see DSP. Yes, DSP. I hope you are speaking as a politician, not as a lawyer.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just taking a cue from your direction, sir. I understand clearly what my friend Senator Marafa is saying and the sentiments expressing. What's happening in Zamfara is actually condemnable, and the proliferation of arms all over Nigeria is indeed very worrisome. So I understand the point he's making. But you see, when you are making a law, you have to have the future, in perspective. So we don't expect that this level of proliferation will continue, and then we may not be in a position to begin to amend the law when it begins to go down. So I think, therefore, that we should be able to know that we have to be futuristic in making this law, and the punishment itself, I think what we have here is sufficient, not only for now, but also for the future. The problem really is not even the punishment, it's not even these provisions. The problem is actually in the implementation of these laws. We have more than enough laws in Nigeria to put everybody in checks. But the problem is how we implement these laws. What is the problem with implementing agencies, the prosecution agencies, the enforcement agencies, and those who are supposed to ensure that it doesn't happen in the first place? So that's where the problem lies. So we should be more interested in taking proactive actions to ensure that we don't even get to a situation where somebody will come into offense. The prevention is essentially more important than all these punishments. So, and as I said, it is important that we also believe that the law itself has to look beyond our present circumstance.
This question, are we saying that you need to explain to me when you say futuristic? Shouldn't we be looking at how do we, by penalties, discourage what is becoming a thriving business? And if we truly believe, would 1 million naira today really be an deterrent? Now, if we put a stronger penalty, what is the danger in the future that you're talking about? Surely, if the crime goes down, then there will be even less of those cases. What is the fear when you say futuristic, that if we have a minimum penalty, a minimum fine of 10 years, what is the danger going forward that it might create for those of us that are not learned? Maybe you can help us.
Yeah, the point I'm making, sir, is that most of our laws had provided punishment for almost every offense. So if we're able to implement these laws, be able to stop it from committing the crime, and when it's eventually committed, and people pay for it, even if the punishment is 1 day, 2 days, or 1 naira, that's enough deterrence. But if you make it 1 billion or 10 years or life imprisonment, and nobody's ever prosecuted, it doesn't make any sense, it doesn't add up. Which is what was happening now. What is happening now? In places like New York, for instance, they commit more offenses in New York in a day than they commit in the whole of Nigeria. The difference is that if you commit the offense, there is likelihood that they'll catch you, and you'll be able to pay the price. And this price may be a suspended sentence. So otherwise, their prison will be filled up with people. So they were looking at even decongesting the prisons. So the emphasis in the criminal, the management of criminal matters should be in deterring people from committing the offense, making sure, and the only best way to do this, to prevent it from happening. It's the preventive side that is very critical.
Same time, also, have a stiffer penalty for when you do the crime. In as much as I agree with you, our focus should be prevention. But that should not stop us.
The idea of committing offense, the people will be discouraged by the mere fact that there is high likelihood of you being caught. So they're not being discarded because they're going to give them life sentence, especially when they will never be caught and they will never be prosecuted. If you go to court, the case will never end. So we have to look at what is more efficient, what serves the long-term end of justice than the quantum of justice, of the punishment. If they want to put it for 10 years, fine, but I'm just saying that we should know that there's other areas we need to focus on.
Yes, the Deputy Leader, you're back to your position. So you should stand, stay where God put you.
I hope the Senate President is not permanently quarantining me to this place. In the absence of the leader, I'm the leader, sir, by the rules. Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, sir, in sentencing policy under criminal jurisprudence, society takes into account its immediate challenges and then design a sentencing policy that will temporarily cure those challenges. And under this situation, prescription of stiff penalty is allowed, sir. And the way to do it is to look at, under the circumstances in this country now, what kind of punishment can we prescribe that will drastically serve as a deterrent to those who carry these illegal weapons illegally. It is in that line that I am tempted to lean towards the argument of my brother and friend before, distinguished Senator Marafa, that we put a mandatory sentence. 10 years is too much. Yes, sir, 10 years is too much. But that we can prescribe something in between, sir, that does not give the judge any option of fine. And we make it clear that if you are found in possession, mere possession, without license, it's straightforward 6 years or without option of fine. So if we are able to get 3 or 4 or 5 people convicted under this, and others see that they are really going to serve 5 years, sir.
I said,
Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleague. Mr. Chairman, the way this report is drafted is not helping us. And the amendment being sought by Senator Nala, as well, that says even mere possession. If you look at the report, it said any persons who contravene any of the provision of this act specified in paragraph A and C. We don't have even the details of A and C here. We don't know how strong these contraventions are before we now prescribe these punishments being proposed by Senator Marafa. If mere possession fall under A, we don't know. If mere possession and legal acquiring of this possession fall under C, we don't know. So I think this report needs to be more explicit in terms of what is contained in all these paragraphs before we now make a proposal as to direction in which we'll be going as regarding these penalties.
David Moore, do you want to clear this or give us some clarification on these observations raised by Senator Yai?
Yeah, I think it's quite bad. Unfortunately, I don't even have the...
Considering the kind of recommendation we're talking, we stand this down and you can bring it tomorrow. I don't think it's something that in another legislative day, it's not something that should take too long. So if we agree, we stand it down to the next legislative day being tomorrow, and we consider it then. If I go guide leave, so leader. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, very distinguished colleagues, I move that we stand down the consideration of this report till the next legislative day, when more legislative work would have been done. I so move.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I rise to second the motion that we stand down this bill to another legislative day to allow for further consultation. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Senate reverse plenary for the chart report progress.
Mr. Chairman, I stand to second the motion that the Senate do revert to plenary to report progress. I so second.
Distinguished colleagues, those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
Olushola. I'm one of the food vendor for the school, home-grown school feeding. This is where I do my cooking every morning before I take the food to school. I heard of it from the media. It was announced that those who are interested should apply. And I applied for it, I was screened, then I was chosen to serve. Then the financial aspects of it, I now benefit from it, unlike when I was idle at home. Apart from that, the homegrown school feeding has exposed me to meeting a lot of people. Thereby, my own business as a caterer can now increase, where I'm now connected to a lot of people.
Sitting is a natural thing to do as humans on a daily basis, whether in the office, at our various businesses, or while commuting from one point to another.
I sit 2 or 3 hours in my office, depending on the job I have on my table.
I do resume work by 9 o'clock, so 9 till 3. You'll be sitting either you do one patient job to another because we make dentures.
Sometimes when you're in the court, the court starts by 9, and sometimes the session takes up to 3 hours or 4 hours, and you sit through.
During the course of a day's activity, sitting is a must. While sitting itself is not bad, prolonged sitting, expert says, can shorten one's lifespan.
Sitting down makes you sedentary. When you're sedentary, that means that there's very little motion. You may say, after all, you're moving your hands and all that, but the human system is such that movement is supposed to circulate around all parts of the body, the blood system. And so when you are seated for too long, that motion, that circulation of blood is slow. And as it slows, it affects other functions of the body. Your brain, because the blood supply to your head is reduced. You even hear about people stroking in the office.
The bill was sponsored by distinguished Senator Babajide C. Omourare, CON, representing Osun East Senatorial District, which bill was read for the first time on October 6, 2015. The bill was subsequently referred to our committee via Senate Order of Referral dated 28 September 2017 to report back with its recommendation. The objective of the bill, in the committee's view, Mr. President, is to seek to amend the Nigerian Law Reform Commission Act, CAP N118 LFN 2004, to, among other things, bring it into conformity with its core mandate and global best practices by ensuring that some level of autonomy is conferred on the Commission in the discharge of its responsibilities to, among other things, forward reports of its activities to the National Assembly. Before now, the Commission's reports on very important legislations do not get to the National Assembly as a result of the fact that their only point of contact with the Presidency and the National Assembly is through the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice. The passage of this bill, therefore, will address this bureaucratic bottleneck, as the Commission will now be empowered to also forward copies of its reports directly to the National Assembly. This is in line with the best practices obtainable in other jurisdictions such as Canada, Australia, South Africa, and so on. The methodology is also indicated, also the committee's activities. I will equally go to the legislative summary. Mr. President, on page 5, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the legislative summary highlights.
You have been watching deliberations on the floor of the Senate on issues and bills, including executive communication for confirmation of 2 nominees by President Muhammad Buhari. But this is how far we can go today. We are joining back to our studio. Abdullahi Aminu is saying thank you for being with us.
Imagine a station where you access information. Think of a station that creates awareness. for national development. Imagine a station that prepares you for a bright and greater future. A station for all ages, documentaries, classroom and television, events coverage, children's programs and variety shows. Always stay tuned to NTA Knowledge on the StarTimes platform, channel 359. For partnership, sponsorship and advert placements, contact us on NTA Knowledge. NTA Knowledge, learning to broaden horizon.
My name is Matthew Ojioko. I am the president of Association of Retired WAF. We owe this to President Muhammadu Buhari, who graciously granted us this favor.
Yes, it be like say they want to tell us another story again, yo. Now so, you know, say people they say I be superstar.